Hey there, my name is AJ Pickett and I make videos about role-playing games. Today, as promised, we are going to explore an area of the multiverse that holds huge danger, extremely challenging conditions, horror, terror, and ruination to any soul stupid enough to be stuck there. Those who know the word Pandemonium, the image it conjures is frantic, jumbled, urgent, and an eternal, violently loud chaos. It is an endless hurricane of screaming winds. It is jagged rock and noxious chasms. It is armies of the dead marching through caverns which strip the flesh from their bones. It is of brooding fortresses of gore-stained rock, broken towers, twisting mazes, choked alleyways in madhouse-hanging streets, carnivals of blood, the screaming falls of the river Styx, howling dragons, cavorting gibberlings, exploding gorbles, demon ropers, buried vaults, cosmic criminals, potent wizards, and hardy planar blades for hire. One video can't really do any location full justice, but I'll see what I can offer in an attempt to bring Pandemonium to life in your mind. Pandemonium is an infinite plane of rock that seems to have caverns carved out of it by a wind that tears through it incessantly. The wind is extremely loud as it supernaturally carries any sound, any word shouted, every tormented scream, every babbling utterance of those driven insane by the noise over time. It is also cold. The wind saps the warmth out of the rock, and any living thing will suffer hypothermia if not protected from the wind's chill. There is no natural sources of light on the plane. The wind will snuff out any fire, any lit lantern. There's also a constant danger of being struck by loose objects picked up by the wind and carried for miles, including the occasional body, but mostly bits of rock, shards of metal, bone, and ice. Pandemonium is a chaotic plane. Characters of a lawful alignment will face a -2 penalty on all charisma-based checks. For those of you not using alignment in your game, this whole plane has a feel like something malicious is about to happen, but there's no hint as to exactly where that danger is yet. The place has an edge to it, it's palpable, particularly to those who enjoy peace and safety. There is precious little of either in Pandemonium. A knowledge of sign language is quite handy, and most locals will use some sort of it among themselves. To visitors, it will be weird to see non-telepathic creatures like yethhounds using a form of sign language that uses mainly ears, paws, body position. Other creatures such as howler dragons use wing and tail positions in their complex sign language. Always keep in mind, without adequate air protection, beings with hearing are rendered temporarily deaf in a matter of seconds and permanently deaf in a few minutes in most parts of Pandemonium. The first edition Manual of the Planes tells us that the gravity in Pandemonium always pulls away from the centre of any cavern, so you can walk on the floor, walls or ceiling. Streams and rivers flow along one surface, which at times can be above where you're walking, or they can appear to flow uphill at a sharp angle, sometimes even inexplicably down the middle through the air. The water here is particularly dangerous. This is one of the reasons the frozen water carried on the howling gales is dangerous, as the river Styx twists and churns through Pandesmos, the first layer of the 4 planes that comprise Pandemonium. The layers are pretty straightforward. Each one is far deeper into the infinite rock, essentially. It's nothing but caves and dungeons and caverns so large they contain monumental structures and even more dungeons. The various deepest parts of Pandemonium are the basic bedrock of the plane. In this expanse of rumbling rock are countless unmapped gaps in the rock. Some are airless voids, some are like big pockets of air. Most are huge bubble chambers filled with a howling vortex of air. There may be no native life forms. Everything not built of the rock has been brought down into Pandemonium. There's always been a lot of quasits and lesser demons on the plane, exiles, prisoners and malcontents on the run who learn to survive. Those who master the strange gravity can travel at high speeds in tunnels with just enough gravity pull from all directions to create a zero-G sweet spot in mid-air. Seeing something appear to fly that really shouldn't be flying is therefore pretty normal on the first 2 layers of the plane. So if you can see anything at all, these planes are unrelentingly dark. There's no daytime, it's eternal night. There are plenty of shadow demons, an unknown number of darklings, loads of wraiths. The wraiths are quite a problem on the whole. If your character gets widespread attention when they arrive, they might get summoned to stand before Basim Gorag, an ancient ascended Batraki and now Slard Lord, as well as one of the 5 primordials still worshipped on Toril. This guy, this charming fellow, so just watch yourself, keep your head low. The surface zones of Pandemonium exposed to the howling gales are not great spots to stay, so most beings will seek out crevices and switchbacks, some sort of sealed off area, any sort of quiet nook out of the wind. Those who plan to arrive in Pandemonium will usually arrive in or near the sprawling, crowded trade centre originally constructed by a planar faction called the Bleak Cabal. The Madhouse is still an impressive citadel built up around a massive alehouse and city hall of sorts. Merchant lords, gangs and planar drifters drive a roaring trade here. Laws are either ad hoc or basically absent. According to the Planes of Chaos, the Book of Chaos, the ruler of the Madhouse, Maris Warrow, bears the title Matron of the Inn. The citadel is divided into sections by multiple stone walls. Befitting its name, a high percentage of the residents of the Madhouse are deaf or insane, or both. As it is built around the walls of a huge cavern, the streets gradually curve uphill until a traveller winds back to where they started. Thanks to the strange gravity, this also means the peaks and towers of the citadel also have lighter gravity, though they are still too far away from the cavern's centre to have zero gravity. The howling nightmare winds beyond the citadel are deadly anyway. The larger caverns are hundreds to thousands of miles deep, wide and tall, and the winds there can lift up small humanoids and carry them far enough away to inflict a very dangerous landing. Deep in Pandesmos, you can find a cave where the never-ending winds have polished the surface into a huge chamber of mirrors. This cavern of the self is potently magical. It reflects the image of the occupants thousands of times, but each reflection is of the occupants from different time points in their lives and expressing different emotions. But each being only sees a reflection of themselves alone, even if they're standing in a group. It's believed that if one can find a true reflection at that instant, among the plethora of reflections, great personal insight can be achieved. Pandesmos is still the most habitable of the four planar layers. It has portals to the abyss, the plane of limbo, the infinite staircase. There is a gate town called Bedlam which connects the outlands. The fan-shaped town of Bedlam is built haplessly on the slopes of the Murash Hill on the edge of the outlands. Myriad of Gales is a bardic college dedicated to learning the music of the insane. Strangers are sometimes kidnapped and exposed to the plane's howling winds in order to tease secrets from their minds and lips. Most of the gods found in Pandemonium also call Pandesmos their home. Auril's Palace of Winter's Hall is located in Pandesmos, as are the black sewers of the fugitive god Raxavort. So you can find little blue-skinned, conniving Zvarts all over this place, as you would expect. Talos's divine realm is named the Towers of Ruin, the Screaming Towers, or the Towers at the Heart of the Winds. As it is always surrounded by a mighty howling whirlwind suitable for the Lord of Storms, he, like all the other resident gods, can manipulate the physics of their slice of Pandemonium, so the Towers of Talos are made of rock that will not erode in the constant screaming winds, because the will of Talos says so. Basically, the regions all around the gods are also impacted by the faith and will of the gods' worshippers. In the case of Raxavort, his black sewers are a confounding maze that are found in the layers of Pandesmos and deeper down in the layer of Cocytus, infested with rats, were-rats, Zvarts, Raxavort's escaped slaves, and all sorts of vermin-hunting monsters adapted to the cold, dark, and lack of any sort of useful echolocation, which is why werebats don't thrive in the black sewers. Off the beaten track, away from the gods' domains, packs of voracious varguils prey on the living. There are many undead, which stalk and crawl, drift and lay in wait on Pandesmos. The edge of the border into Auril's freezing domain is hard to notice, but the frigid ice surrounding her domain also strips the memory from any who would try and melt and drink it. The planar river Styx, as I mentioned, begins in Pandesmos, fed by countless cold streams flowing along the walls of Pandemonium. There is also numerous flat square portals. Yellow squares lead to limbo, red squares lead to the abyss, and black to the outlands. The portals, however, are not very reliable. Sometimes they dump travellers in the wrong planes. Speaking of planar travel, to reach Pandesmos with the plane shift spell you'll need an iron planar fork, preferably iron from one of the lower planes, and tuned to the note of C#. Next layer down, which is commonly called the layer of lamentation, the tunnels of lamentation are more formally called Cocytus. The caverns here are few and far between. The countless tunnels are also more narrow and winding. In Cocytus, you are either out of the path of the wind, or it is a lethal threat. The sound it makes is a higher pitch, best described as a shrill and wailing sound of sorrow, hence the name of the place. The rock is either tougher stuff, or perhaps this is the strongest rock remaining, and the tunnels, even the oldest kinds, show signs that they were not formed naturally. There appears to be chisel marks in the stone, like the entire place was manually carved out of the rock. A very, very long time ago, but there's no clue as to what did this. It's a complete mystery. The most juicy theory is that it was some lost god, now just a nameless remnant drifting in the astral plane. Whatever it was, it left millions of miles of tunneled rock in the pitch darkness and terrible mind-shattering noise. As in the other layers, the deafening winds only allow conversation via shouting for those caught in their path, and any intelligible sound, including sound-based spells, only carry over a distance of 10 feet or 3 meters before being totally drowned out. A grenade could go off 15 feet from your head and you wouldn't be able to hear it. Any who suddenly and unexpectedly arrive on this plane in the full path of the wind are hard-pressed to do much over the first minute or so, as they slap their hands over their ears and scream in pain, only to realise it's the last thing they're going to hear. And this is if they manage not to get picked up and flushed by the wind like a turd in a wind turbine. According to the Powers and Pantheons, the 3rd edition manual of the planes and the Plane of Chaos, there are a few notable locations in the Layer of Lamentation. There is a region where the monstrous creatures encountered start to seem like giant weasels or wolverines, and everyone who gets into a combat fights to the death. There are more than a few wolf spider demons in the tunnels as well. This is near the lair of the god Garagos. He's not happy, particularly with humans. Formerly a greater god named Targos, he fell far with the destruction of the ancient empire of Netheril. Now, not much more than a demigod, overshadowed by the god Tempest, Garagos is a terrifying figure who is essentially the god of mindless slaughter in warfare. His realm of Battleguard is quite different to the rest of Pandemonium. It seems like the usual weird gravity, but the terrain has grass and trees and dirt and such. The howling winds become storm clouds in a landscape lit by lightning constantly flashing across brooding clouds hurling past in distorted tunnel spaces, which are larger on the inside than on the outside. This displaced chunk of divine space was once a torn-off chunk of limbo called Warrior's Rest, and it carries on like it always has. Thousands and thousands of fighters battle here. Where they are cut down, they rise again, now fighting for whatever side just killed them, and so on it goes. The actual ecosystem includes grasses that grow on a diet of spilled blood, and the soil is made of layers of teeth and decomposed bone. It's not a nice place. Best avoided. Also very unpleasant is Howler's Crag, a massive spire in a twisting and massive cavern. Unusual in so many ways. The spire is a built structure constructed over the top of the grave of a phoenix, and at the top there is a stone portal that leads out of Pandemonium. Portals are much less common in Cocytus, though that's not the main use of this portal though. You see, if you shout a message to someone or somewhere specific, no matter where they are in the multiverse, the recipient will hear it if you shout through that portal. There's another location with a portal called Howler's Gate. It has an accurate, if deceptive, name. The reason it howls is that it is a constantly open portal to the quasi-elemental plane of vacuum. If you venture too close and see someone throwing a suspicious object into Howler's Gate, don't ask any questions. Another unpleasant location is this realm of Hruggek, literally Hruggek's land, the god of the bugbears. As you would expect, it is a region dedicated to ambush, violence and combat. You can tell you're getting close to the lair of Hruggek. We can start seeing wider tunnels and severed heads. Lots of them. On the ground, on shelves, on ropes, on poles, thrust through the heads on the ground. You get the idea. Technically, Hruggek is supposed to be elsewhere, working for Bane in Banehold, but his lair is still there and full of nasty. So perhaps his followers are holding out faith that he will return to his old glory days. I don't know. There are more pleasant parts of the Layer of Lamentation. There is the Harmonica, a series of cave systems that channel the winds into a much more intense, destructive centre. And inside the lethal zone, so it is rumoured, the secret to planeswalking without need for spells or devices. A secret from another multiverse. Not worth it. Probably a lie anyway. Then there is the Laughing Mug. Carved out of the rock near Howler's Crag, this infamous interdimensional tap house is currently run by one Fat Worreld, an insane and malnourished human who always talks in the form of questions. A visit to Pandemonium is not complete without purchasing a t-shirt, but don't grab a drink. There are some who drink to forget, and in the Laughing Mug, which uses the water of what will become the river Styx to brew its ale, you really are going to forget. Those who are going down the path to memory oblivion will tell you all sorts of tales about how it's an amazing feeling, your life literally flashing before your eyes and then fading away. Do not listen to them, it's bullshit and it's horrible. People who drink there probably won't get too far through a glass of ale before some dark patron whisks them away with a very nasty offer. People with absolutely nothing to lose are a rich commodity in the lower planes after all. Howler's Crag is a fairly rich source of demons on the plane of Pandemonium, drawn to the destructive evil of Garagos and Hruggek, no doubt. But there is plenty here to draw their interest, and after all, the Abyss is right next door here. It's like the Shadowfell, whereas the plane of Limbo is like Pandemonium's version of the Feywild. But not really, they are separate planes, not parallel dimensions per se. Anyway, moving on. Down we go to the next layer of Pandemonium, the layer called Phlegethon. My mentioning of the Feywild won't help much when I tell you that this is where the unseelie court of the shadowy Fey sometimes manifest. It's understandable when I describe what Phlegethon is like, and then it will seem like the unseelie court couldn't really stay away from the place anyway. Phlegethon has normal gravity, and thus the waters have a chance to flow in a normal sort of way finally. This layer is also kind of the end of the wind trap, and so the air is full of dust and dampness. There are still howling gales, but through massive caverns full of incredible stalagmite and stalactite formations, further twisted into artistic forms by the erosion of the wind over eons. The water constantly dripping and getting buffeted by the gales makes it feel like it's constantly raining. The gloom and pitch darkness is almost supernatural, and it's so cold that puddles of water are covered in ice. Not only does one have to contend with darkness so intense that even dark vision has its range reduced by half, there's also very difficult terrain infested with nightmarish giant crabs and other crustaceans. There are oozes all over the place, weird fungus that grows a bit like coral but full of sneaky camouflage spiders and tons of nasty fae. This is also the domain of the legendary howling dragons, and here, where the river Styx finally converges into a strong flow, the thousands of tributary flows are home to the largest amount of Styx dragons, and they don't like each other, or anyone else for that matter. Oh, and there are giant albino cave wolves. It's a very busy place, and in many ways even more interesting than Pandesmos. One big shake-up of the more inhabited zones of Phlegethon was the death and return of the god of caverns, Eberron. Lesser known to many, outside nations such as Kalimshan and Thay, now I imagine. One of the reasons the Drow pantheon has not carved a nice home for itself in Pandemonium is because of opposition from Eberron, who hates Lolth. He also hates all gods representing light, dawn, and so on, so Lathander right out. For the past couple of centuries, though, his vast domains of populated caverns have lost his divine will, and the beings who once thrived there are now facing inevitable extinction to all the dungeon horrors and demons now that Eberron is once again manifested but is no longer living in Pandemonium. There are also some weird divine effects in some caverns caused by many worshippers of a god named Derinka. The god may not actually exist in the same way other gods do, so the region his believers manifest their faith in is more like some crazy Darrow dreamscape, almost a cartoon version of a dark and nightmarish cavern complex full of beasts, traps and castles of doom stocked with ridiculously dangerous dungeons. It would be a bit silly if it were not so viciously dangerous to any without the sense of knowledge to stay the hell away. If visitors to this layer are not unlucky enough to wander into those realms, they will probably be captured by the Fae, who will drag them before the noble Fae, who will judge whether or not the captors are useful in their constant schemes against each other and the other Seelie courts. The fickle and wanton nature of the Fae takes on all the darker aspects here though, so expect the worst. Other than that, there is the settlement of Windglum, another interdimensional hidey hole for those really wanting to be lost. Aside from many shacks and mansions hidden behind doors as secure as bank vaults, there's not much to see in Windglum at first, aside from very suspicious locals peering out of their doors to any unwelcome newcomers. Anyone asking, well, for anything really, will be rudely directed to the only place open to visitors, the Scaly Dog Inn, another location fairly infamous to the hard-bitten and twitchy travellers of Plains of Chaos. Beyond that, I've already said about as much as you need to know about the last layer. Well, Agathion is more like whatever is left. It's the endless rock expanse beyond the most distant tunnels. All you'll find here is completely isolated caverns, half of which contain no air at all. Those that do contain air will usually erupt in a violent windstorm the moment a portal is opened, and that is really the only way these places are accessible from any other layers and from any other planes of existence. The difficulty of locating any of these random caverns inside infinite expanses of rock make them perfect for deities and sometimes very powerful wizards to hide something away from the rest of the multiverse. There's any number of artifacts, personal keepsakes, powerful monsters, and even pocket dimensions hidden away. There are many tales about those chambers, more than I can regale you with, and there are many specific questions about the various inhabitants of the plane. I'm only too happy to answer any questions like that in the comment section under the video, as always, happily if I can. Meanwhile, could you spare a moment to consider the tired or non-existent state of your tabletop gaming surface? I am running a Kickstarter at the moment. It's only live for another month or so and it desperately needs your help. Link is down below the video in the description text. Please share it around. I have the best gaming mats we can currently manufacture at a very low Kickstarter price, just $40 US, and you get a canvas carry bag for all your gear, including your laptops and books. There's a large A1 sized silicon mat printed with 1-inch squares on one side and 1-inch hex on the other. The silicon is a perfect dry erase surface for using marker pens to do any mapping and note taking during the game. It cleans perfectly with just a damp cloth over and over and over again. It's heat proof, machine washable if you really feel the need, can scrunch up completely and always rolls out perfectly flat and smooth, ready for action. I'm also including a silicon character sheet and combat tracker sheet, which can be used for any role-playing games, not just D&D, and are particularly handy for online game sessions. These sheets will last you a lifetime of excellent gaming. Remember, you will not be charged until the campaign is over, and only if it reaches its funding goal to cover the minimum manufacturing order from the factory. Please pledge now to help me bring up those numbers and get those sitting on the fence to pledge as well. Or if you really don't need this gear, please let your friends and social contacts know about it. I'm really relying on you a lot to make this happen. Without your help, I just can't get these mats made, and that would be a bummer. Check out my other videos where I explore the outer planes of existence. Thanks to everyone who requested this trip to Pandemonium. If you enjoyed it, consider liking the video and share it with someone who needs to just subscribe to my channel and fuel their players' nightmares and put some rocket fuel in their own imagination. As always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.